So, uh, I've got two daughters. One is 8 and the other one's 3. And they both have a fascination with Disney and Disney princesses. And one thing that I always found really troublesome was when somebody was fascinated with Disney princesses when they were like 30, and there's a psychologist that I talk to quite a bit, and what she usually studies is she studies like behavioural psychology and how certain things evolve into types of thinking that we're starting to see today, which we've never seen on a society-wide scale before. And the I'm a princess mentality is one thing that she takes a very... Sorry, just got to change hands here a second. It's one thing that she takes a very dim view of that kind of thinking, and I do as well. And I said, well, you know, it's... if somebody wants to dress up as a princess, that's cute when they're 8, but it's not cute when they're 28. And she said, do you know, I'm not even sure it's cute when they're 8. And I started to have a think about this. And when my daughter says to me that she wants to be a princess, I'd say to her, what, like in real life? And she says, yeah. That was when I got on to telling her about a very famous princess in history, Elizabeth of Austria. I said to her, I said, you don't want to be a princess, you want to be the leader, and you feel that being a princess is what's going to make you a leader. That's not true at all. If in real life you were a princess, you would think that you would be the leader and you would be able to call the shots, but in actual fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Every aspect of your life would be entirely managed. There would not be anything that you would be able to decide for yourself. One recent example that we have of this is Meghan Markle. She thought, I'll become good old Princess Meghan. And then it's like, you don't call the shots about anything from the second that you say I do. Everything that you wear, everything that you do, every second of your life is so carefully stage managed and choreographed, you have absolutely no say over anything about your own life. And the example that I gave to my daughter was Elizabeth of Austria. So she was 15, I think, when she was carted off to Franz Joseph II of the House of Habsburg. So like this guy, Franz Joseph, was, I'm going to say, throughout his life, probably the most powerful man in the world. I would probably say at different periods of his life, he would probably not have been the most powerful and might have slid up and down the top 10 a number of times, but generally speaking, most powerful man in the world. And she was given to him, so she becomes not just a princess, but an empress. Probably the second most powerful woman in the world at the time. She had absolutely no say over her own life. She didn't say whether... She didn't have any say in whether she married him. She didn't have any say over kids or their names or how to raise them or anything like that. In fact, she felt really, really put upon in terms of how she raised her kids, and she grew to really resent the life that she had, which to an outsider would have been a life of utmost privilege, whereas in actual fact her whole life was a function. It was never her life. She couldn't go and do what she wanted. Like, if I want to right now, if I wanted to, I could go to McDonald's, I could walk in, sit down, pig out on a Big Mac, and then I could go to the pub and I could have 9 pints, get absolutely blasted, spout whatever I wanted to spout, go home, and this is the thing, is that is actually freedom. And when your life becomes a function of what other people have designed for you, you no longer have that freedom. And that's the problem with being a princess, or being a princess, or the idea of being a princess, is that it's not a leadership function. Even though it would kind of like be seen as a leadership function, it's not. So in Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, and I've been there, you can actually read Elizabeth of Austria, Sisi as she was known, you can read her diary. She never loved the man that she was married to. She had affair after affair after affair after affair, because there was just something about him and his mutton chops, look them up, they're legendary, that just didn't seem to be the way of life that she wanted. And this, I think, is like, it's really interesting to know, especially when kids get this fascination of, oh, I want to be a princess, that the actual reality of being a princess is probably a life that none of us would want, just simply because of how restrictive it is. It's not a life of leadership and freedom, it's a life of servitude, a life of duty. Do you think the Queen could go to the pub and have 8 pints and gob off and lose her week's wages on the fruity? No. Something tells me she probably wanted to, Her late Majesty. But she didn't, because her life was always carefully managed by somebody else. Every footstep, every interaction, everything, because you know that if you make a wrong dress choice, you're going to get mullered by the press. Everything meticulously managed. And Meghan Markle herself said, you know, she said, like, some days I was just sat on the front porch of Frogmore House in Windsor, and she says, I just cry. I just cried because she felt like a prisoner in Windsor Castle. She didn't feel like she was free. Being a princess was not a dream lifestyle. And yes, I'm the sort of father that gives my 8-year-old that sort of reality check. But you know, then there's room there to say, well, if you want that leadership position, it doesn't come from being a princess. It doesn't come from any magical fairy tale lie that you've been sold. It comes from what you can do in here and what you can do in here. And these two things, you get them working together with what you can do out here. That's where your leadership position comes. That's when you become the boss. Not because of something you've married into, or because of some fairy tale, but because of who you are as a person. And that for me is kind of like, it's what I try and get them to reject the princess mentality. And I think that they're going to grow up to be better people because of that.